Welcome to Chapel. We're so glad you're here. If you don't mind just clapping with us. Shout your praise from my heart to your ears. All the glory is yours, now forevermore. Hear our worship, all we can give it for you. We're here for you. So we dance, we sing, and we worship. Our hearts are ready, we're here for you. Oh, 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 we're here for you, we're here for you. Let your spirit as we shout your praise to all the glory is yours, now forever. Hear our worship, all we can give is to you. We're here for you. We are here for you. We dance, we dance, and we sing, we worship. You are here. We're here for you. We give everything. One who is worthy, our hearts are ready, Lord. We're here for you. Oh, 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 we sing, oh, 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 oh. If you don't come, we won't move. We're desperate, Lord, for a touch from you. If you don't come, we won't move. We're desperate, Lord, for a touch from singing with me. You don't come, we won't move. We're desperate, Lord, for a touch from you. If you don't come, we won't move. We're desperate, Lord, for a touch from you. If you don't come, we won't. Yeah. Desperate, Lord, for a touch from you.
all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. dark, and I cannot whisper away what is said in the light. And He is my firm foundation, my anchor won't be moved. Storms may collide, but my soul is on fire with His word. And we'll listen to the sound of power on my lips. Jesus has broken the curse, and He has never lost a battle. He never will. He is my faithful Father, calling me out of the dark, and I cannot whisper away what is said in the light. And He is my firm foundation, my anchor won't be moved. Storms may collide, but my soul is on fire with His word. We'll listen to the sound of power on my lips. Jesus has broken the curse, and He has never lost a battle. Who are you, great mountain, that you should not bow low? Jesus defeated the darkness. He has never lost a battle. He never will. Christ redeemed, we remember He has won the world. Jesus might overcome, our defender is conquered. Christ Redeemer, we remember He has won the world. Jesus mighty overcomer, our defender has conquered. Christ Redeemer, we remember He has won the world. Jesus mighty overcomer, our defender conquered. We'll listen to the sound of power on my lips. Jesus has broken the curse. He has never lost a battle. And who are you, great mountain, that you should not bow low? Jesus defeated the darkness. He has never lost a battle. He never will. Let's close our eyes, bow our head. Just give the Lord thanks this morning. Thank you, God, for bringing us together. We know that not everyone has this freedom to gather and to worship you, God, and to thank you for who you are. We love you because you first loved us, God. And we just pray that our ears would be open to hear what you have for us today, God, that we would be willing to come into your presence and get to know you more, Father. We thank you for who you are, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
We are grateful for our chapel worship team ministry, and why don't we just thank them again for their preparedness this morning. That's a wonderful song, right? Never lost, right? Never lost. We follow Jesus, who has never lost a battle. Before Dean Johnson comes and introduces our very special speaker this morning, which we're very delighted to have, I was just made aware that this week is National Security Officers Week, Public Safety Officers Week, and I thought, and Student Development would like to just give a shout out to our wonderful men and women who serve as our public safety officers. They're on call each and every day for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So can we just, I know some are watching, some could not be here, but maybe today, if you see one of our public safety officers, just wave and say thank you. So let's offer time for them. Wonderful. Thank you.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce this beautiful soul, Dr. Mayra Picos Lee. Dr. Mayra Picos Lee, a native of Mexico, teaches pastoral counseling at Esperanza College and Palmer Theological Seminary of Eastern University. She is also the director of the MTS Latina Ministries program at Palmer. Dr. Picos Lee holds a D.Min in Marriage and Family Ministry and a Master of Divinity from Eastern Baptist Theological Seminary. She is also a marriage and family therapist licensed by the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. She has also earned a BA in Business Administration from Universidad Autónoma de Tamaulipas and a BA in Psychology from Universidad del Noreste in Mexico. Dr. Picos Lee currently serves as board chair for the Hispanic Summer Program, an ecumenical academic program intended to promote and amplify the voices, scholarship, and contributions of Latinx communities in the United States. She previously served as board president for Bautistas por la Paz, a nonprofit organization that gathers, equips, and mobilizes Baptist members and congregations to build a culture of peace rooted in justice. Recently, Dr. Picos Lee was appointed as a special assistant in pastoral care and counseling with International Ministries of American Baptist Churches, USA. She supports the global partners in their work and ministries among migrants and refugees worldwide. Beyond her teaching experience at Palmer Seminary, Dr. Picos Lee has taught in Mexico, Central America, South America, and the United States, especially among Latinx communities. She also maintains a private practice as a marriage and family therapist, serving immigrants, refugees, bicultural families, women, and other populations who have been historically disempowered. Open your ears to the word of the Lord through this beautiful soul, Dr. Mayra Picos Lee.
Good morning. It's kind of hard to see with the lights. But good morning. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for that introduction and your welcoming. And thank you to Chaplain Modica for inviting me here today. Today I was telling to Chaplain Modica that happens to be Mexican Independence Day. So September 15, we celebrate. Okay, let me read from the Bible, Matthew 28, verses 16 to 20. I'm going to be reading from the New Revised Standard Version. Now, the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age." This is a very familiar passage for most of all. The passage that I just read is in Matthew 28, 16 to 20, and is better known within Christian circles as the Great Commission, right? Jesus charged his disciples and the people gathered at the mountain in Galilee with a particular mission: go and make disciples of all nations. So this well-known passage, which is often used as a mission charge to Christians, because this is exactly what Jesus seems to be doing here, is an occasion in which Jesus is charging his disciples and others gathered at the mountain with a particular mission. Now, the word missions come from the Latin mittere, which means to send. Some of the common definitions found in the dictionary allude to the meaning of the Latin word. Mission is defined in the following ways. One definition says, an important assignment carried out for political, religious, or commercial purposes, typically including travel. So that's how we come to think of missionaries going places. Secondly, the vocation or calling of a religious organization, especially a Christian one, to go into the world and spread its faith. And a third definition says, a strongly felt aim, ambition, or calling. So as I was reading this familiar passage recently and on the eve of this chapel service, a few questions came to my mind. Why did Jesus give this mission or this commission to the disciples and other people gathered there just before ascending to heaven? These are Jesus' very last words given at the mountain in Galilee after his resurrection and before his ascension into heaven. Then I also asked myself, who are these people being charged with this mission? According to Matthew, they are the disciples. And according to other scholars, some others that have gathered there as well. Matthew especially refers to them as people, perhaps the disciples, who worship him, but some who also doubted. So this is a crowd of people with mixed reactions to Jesus' presence. But they're all there, and they're all listening. Another question that I asked myself about this passage is about the mission itself. What does this mission mean to me and to you today, right? Go and make disciples of all nations. But what does it mean to go nowadays? Where are we going to go, especially in times of a pandemic in which we aren't supposed to travel places, right? Are we all supposed to be making disciples of others? What if we ourselves don't consider to be disciples of Jesus? Or maybe we don't consider ourselves to be good disciples, at least the kind of disciples that inspire others as good instructors or coaches or teachers will do. So, as you heard, I teach at Palmer Seminary. And one of the things that you learn from seminary studies is that to understand a Bible passage, you need to understand the context in which the words were given. So what is happening when this event, the Great Commission, is given to these people? So we must understand the context or situation. Jesus had died a few days before and had resurrected from the dead. It was an amazing happening, to say the least. And though this was the fulfillment of an old prophecy, it did surprise most people when it occurred. Even Jesus' disciples, some of whom knew scriptures really well. We too know from this context that when Jesus was resurrected, he showed up to different groups of people. And according to Matthew, told them to go and meet him in Galilee, where they are gathering now. So the disciples and other people did just that. They came to the mountain in Galilee to meet the resurrected Jesus. It is there that Jesus speaks to them. Now, Jesus is about to ascend to heaven, but his departure at this time is very different from the sense of separation and loss that the disciples and followers had just experienced days before when Jesus was crucified and died. So if you go one chapter back in Matthew relates some of the difficult details of the scenery of the crucifixion. He describes that when Jesus was dying, and I quote, "From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, end of quote. The disciples were nowhere to be found in Matthew's description of the events. And there is mentioning of, and I quote, "many women who were also there looking on from a distance," end of quote. So the sense of despair, agony, and fear is very vivid in this account of Matthew, of Jesus' crucifixion. Yet, one chapter after, Jesus is in a very different situation. This time, Jesus is leaving to ascend to heaven. Right? So, this time the description is not of a suffering and vulnerable Jesus, but of a Jesus who is the Son of God with all authority over heaven and earth. Jesus himself claims this authority as a prelude to his charge to a mission that is shortly followed by a promise. And Jesus says, and I quote, "All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age," end of quote. So, you also heard that I work in the field of counseling. And in my field of study, we find that one of the questions we human beings wrestle with throughout our entire lives relates to finding meaning and purpose to our existence. We often ask ourselves, what is the meaning of my life? Why am I here? Who do I want to become? What do I want to study? Most of us wrestles with these and other related questions several times throughout our lives. Thus, part of being human is our search for meaning and purpose. And we try to find it through different means, and one of them is through acquiring education that prepares us for living into our vocation, just as you're doing right now. Jesus understands what it means to be a human being. Jesus was fully human. Jesus was a human being, and he lived among us. He understands the need we have for purpose and meaning. And then is when he charges his disciples and followers with a mission that gives them direction to their lives. The mission is to go and make disciples of all nations. Instead of just leaving them with a sense of loss and not knowing what to do, as it often happens when you lose someone that you love or when something that is dear to you is taken away, Jesus chooses to charge them. Jesus, the one who has the power over earth and heaven, gives purpose to our lives and promises to be with us as we work at living into it. Now, living into our vocation gives us direction and purpose, right? But figuring out a career path, what our gifts and talents are, jobs that are needed in our community, all these things are part of this quest for living into a vocation that gives us purpose. So we spend time and we talk to people and we do our homework, our research to try to figure out all these things. But sometimes, as we are following this path, oftentimes, not sometimes, I think oftentimes as we are following this path, we get to places or times in which maybe we feel stuck and unable to move forward. And then we ask ourselves, who am I? What's my purpose? What's my mission? Will I ever succeed? So these times when we feel stuck occur because what we may have anticipated about our studies, our relationships, job opportunities, people around us, etc., doesn't quite follow what we have planned. It's then when doubts and fears may cripple into our hearts and minds. Which brings me back to the question, who are these people receiving the mission and listening to Jesus' words? I have mentioned several times that the people hearing Jesus' words represented different groups of people, right? There were those who worship him, but there were also those who doubted. It's a mixed crowd, but Jesus charges them all the same. Bible scholars have debated over the nature of people's doubts in this passage. Were they people lacking faith? Were they a bit confused about the recent events, including Jesus' death and resurrection? Were they unable to move too quickly from the despair they experienced at Jesus' crucifixion into a new sense of hope and belief at Jesus' resurrection? Were they not sure this was the same Jesus who died on the cross? We do not know with certainty, but Matthew stresses that the responses to Jesus' appearance after the resurrection were different. Now, I don't know how you would have reacted if you had been there. And all of a sudden, someone dies, someone dear to you dies, and then 3 days later, when you are still in the midst of your own grief and shock and sense of love, this same person appears to you and, gives you these beautiful words, Great Commission. We like to think that we would have been, maybe, the kind of person that was there worshiping Jesus and being all happy and, wow, this is great, this is wonderful. But the reality may be very different. On Monday, there will have been, it's last Monday, which was the 13th. It was 4 months since my mother passed away, and 5 months since my brother passed away. I lost 2 dear family members in the space of a month. And let me tell you, it's been hard. It's not 3 days, it's 5 months, 4 months. And if you were to ask me, part of me still has this sense of despair and sadness mixed with hope and anticipation for whatever is to come. I'm in a different place of my life from where you are, maybe not. I'm still, losses have a way of bringing into questions many things, especially significant losses that you took for granted or that you thought were resolved in your life. So I put myself in this place, and I think I take my side with the kind of people that will probably be fearful and doubting. It's like, who is this guy, and how is that possible? That someone who died just resurrected. So we don't know with certainty, but Matthew stresses this. These are different groups of people with very different reactions. Some people worshiping, some people doubting. And honestly, again, I identify myself with the people who doubted. There are many reasons for this, But let me just say that I'm not a person who is overly optimistic. I never consider myself that kind of a person. So when something strange, such as a resurrection, happens, I can imagine that it will be hard for me to believe it, right? And instead of receiving the news with excitement and an open heart, I can imagine that I will have tended to lean to the side of doubt, fear, hesitation, and maybe a little bit or a lot of anxiety. However, according to Matthew, it really doesn't matter because Jesus speaks just the same to everyone gathered there, regardless of their emotional or spiritual condition. Both groups of people, the people who worship and the ones who doubted, received the same words from Jesus, the same mission from Jesus. And the same promise is given to both groups. I am with you always until the end of the age. The fact that Jesus is able to extend his mission to people just like me, who are doubtful, afraid, and anxious, right now, at this point in my life, and on the eve of what has happened to me, is very encouraging. And it's good news. Because Jesus gives purpose and direction to my life, regardless of where I am emotionally or spiritually. Jesus gives us a mission, whether or not we think we are ready for it. He gives meaning to our lives, even if we are not quite sure we understand what it means yet. And then what is the nature of this mission? What do Jesus' word, go and make disciples of all nations, mean for you and for me today? Well, this is where it gets complicated. As we reflect on discipleship, Jesus is telling his disciples to go and to share the good news of the gospel in a way that helps people to grow in faith so that they may become more Christ-like. So Jesus tells people to go and teach others and to baptize them. They are to teach them to obey Jesus' commandments. Which commandments? Which one is the most important? Which one I don't want to miss, even if I forget all the others? Well, Jesus was asked the same question by a teacher of the law, and Matthew tells us Jesus' concise words. And I quote, "You shall love the Lord with your God. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and prophets." End of quote. Therefore, we become more Christ-like by following Jesus' commandment to love God and to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Now, sounds simple, right? But sometimes simple things are the most difficult to do. And fulfilling this mission is anything but simple. It takes a lifetime. It takes a lifetime because the mission of sharing good news in the midst of a pandemic, right? People having to mask, or vaccines or not vaccines, or people getting sick, losing jobs, right? Not being able to do things, attend graduations, have celebrations. Sharing good news in the midst of tragedy and despair and ambiguity and doubt is difficult, right? And we have to figure out what is it that we can say in a way that conveys God's love for us, for people, for our communities. The good news is that we are charged to do it continuously. So I often tell my clients, if you don't know what to do and you find yourself doing the same thing that you don't want to do, all patterns, all habits die hard, don't worry. The occasion will rise again for you to try to respond differently in a loving way. We are charged to do it continuously because it's a mission that takes a lifetime. Growing in our ability to be more faithful followers of Jesus by loving more as God loves is our life journey. Even for the most faithful, right? Even for us teachers or maybe people who have lots of wisdom and age, just when we seem to think we understand what it means to follow Jesus, something may happen in our lives that puts that certainty to the test. Ask me. Doubts cripple into our hearts and into our minds, but here's the importance of Jesus' promise. I am with you always to the end of the age. Even if you don't get it right, and even if you don't understand it, Jesus promises, I am with you always. So there lies the certainty that we need to keep on going, even if we don't get it, even if the pandemic continues, even if we have to do more Zoom calls and Zoom meetings and all that. This certainty that we are seeking, especially nowadays, is born out of Jesus' love and unconditional companionship. It's born out of a relationship that is not dependent on us and our ability to get it right. There is no test here. Jesus' presence and love are given to us unconditionally, and with you always until the end of the age. Isn't this what most of us want in relationships? Unconditional love? Jesus promises it to us. We are able to respond to this mission even if we don't get it, because Jesus is with us always. Jesus' presence is always here and now, even in the midst of doubts and uncertainty. The certainty lies here in Jesus' love for us. But then you may ask yourself, what if I don't have a sense of this mission for my life? I just started college. I don't know. Or maybe I've been in college, but I still don't know. Or maybe I'm out of college and I still don't know. What if I don't feel compelled to go and make disciples? What if I don't see myself as a disciple of Jesus at all? Well, you, like me, may have many doubts about this mission and what it means for you personally. But remember that Jesus was talking again to a mixed crowd, and there were people there who doubted too. And even when we do not know the reasons for people's doubt, we may be able to identify with the uneasiness of hearing something, hearing Jesus' loving words, and feeling we are not ready for them yet. Well, then you need to hear again the good news. Jesus gives a mission, the Great Commission, to a doubtful bunch. And it's exactly the same mission he gives to the people who are able to respond to him in awe, excitement, and worship. Remember that one of the definitions of the word mission that I just gave to you today says that mission is defined as a strong felt aim, ambition, or calling. As people of faith, we understand this calling as coming from God, who created us and sustained our lives. But even if we are not sure, even if right now, at this very moment, we do not know if we are committed followers of Jesus, Jesus is still calling us to fulfill his mission and to go out there, to move to where people are. Jesus keeps telling us, go, make disciples of the people you meet, and share good news to them, with them, for them, everyone, everywhere, right where you are, right here at chapel, outside, in your classroom. Jesus knows that true and everlasting meaning for our lives can only be found in God. But again, you may ask, what if I don't have anything good to share? What if? Well, I'm there right with you. I told you, I identify myself much more with the doubtful bunch who are listening to Jesus. So these are some of the questions that I ask myself as I listen to Jesus' word. What if I don't have right now anything to share, anything good to share? Well, at least, things that will be special and will, be comforting to other people that I may attribute to coming from God. What do I do then? We are still being asked to go, and we are still being asked to make. And here lies the relevance of Matthew stressing that not everyone who heard Jesus was in the same place. Some seem to be more ready than others who doubted. How is it possible then that I may help others if I can't help myself? Well, I think this is how it's possible. In trying to become something I am not yet, I grow. And I'm able to experience Jesus' unconditional love and companionship, helping me in the midst of my confusion, ignorance, doubts, and fears. Jesus is there telling us, I am with you always to the end of the age. I am with you always, even if you have doubts. I am with you always, even if you are not ready. I am with you always, even if you don't get it. I am with you always, even if you have suffered significant losses. Jesus' promise is extremely important because it's the reason that sustains our mission. We dare to try because Jesus promises to be with us always at work. The mission is to grow into God's love and to help and be helped by others in this process of living into this calling, becoming more loving. It doesn't matter where you are right now and how much or how little clarity you may have about the specifics of your life or your calling. You may even not know what you believe about Jesus or God or the church or religion, but God is with us all the time. That's what unconditional means. It's not dependent on us. It's just dependent on pure love from God to us. And thus, you may sense a nudge toward helping someone, right? Maybe helping the poor or helping a classmate or reaching out to someone, reaching out to an instructor. I don't know. A variety of things can happen to us every day. Reaching out to people in your community. So you volunteer, or maybe you donate to charity, or maybe you pursue a career path that allows you to advocate for others, or choose to befriend someone who others may not welcome, or who is feeling lonely and depressed. There are many ways to express one's faith. And although you may not be able to articulate your faith in words right now, you can do it in actions. So go, make, and remember. Knowing that as you grow, and because Jesus is with you and with me and with everyone, always, you will become more and more able to express your faith in other ways too. Ways that are your ways and not someone else's expectations of you. The mission is not only for those who exhibit certainty beyond doubt. The mission is for people like you and people like me who may have plenty of doubts and plenty of fears and plenty of anxieties, but who are still listening. We are here. So Jesus is calling us to go out there, right? And to make and to grow into God's love. Love is the hallmark of a disciple of Jesus, according to John 13:35. And Jesus is asking us to grow in the assurance of God's love and companionship, and charging us to embrace the life God has given to us with conviction and purpose right now where we are, whether it's school, home, or search for true vocation, friendships, love, commitment. Jesus is charging us to love others and to learn to love ourselves just as much. Sometimes it's very difficult too. We can do this because we are relying on Jesus' power, authority, and not our own. And we can do it because Jesus is with us, and his presence is not dependent on how good or bad we are as disciples, or how doubtful or excited we are as disciples, but on Jesus' unconditional love, which is with us until the end of the age. Amen. Please pray with me. Dear God, our loving parent, we are grateful because we can welcome you today into our lives, and we can reflect on the multiple ways in which you are calling us to be loving towards one another, ourselves, and to you. We ask that as we move out of this place into different places, whether it's the classroom, whether it's home, whether it's our offices, you guide us Guide us into this mission. Guide us to trust that whatever is going on inside us or around us, you are with us always until the end of the age. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Thank you.